It can be one thing, it can be like the briefcase, it can be the rabbit's foot, it can be a person like Mary, and there's something about Mary, or those harem things where everybody wants to get the one every man or every girl, that sort of thing.
It's the Death Star plan.
It's the Death Star plans, it's the, and sometimes it's really greatly used. One of my favorite, getting back to Dragon Ball Z, that's one of my favorite uses of the MacGuffin because it's so versatile. There's only 7, there's a finite, I can count. There's only 7, so there's a finite amount. So the entire series arc, every arc of Dragon Ball, not Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball, is trying to get all of them together, and at the end you summon the dragon who gives you a wish, and the wish can be anything. And because it's so versatile, you have lots of reasons why people would want to be gathering. Some for good reasons, some for selfish reasons, some for really incredibly evil reasons. And that was a great way to bring it all together. Where it went wrong was in Inuyasha, where they had like a crystal, and everyone was trying to get the crystal, and that was great. And then the crystal broke into indefinite number of shards.
Oh.
And then the series just would not die, because it was always Monster of the Week who had a shard, and there were like supposedly thousands of these. Were just
well, that takes away the idea of an achievable goal.
I know, it takes away the achievable goal, and it just becomes a useless MacGuffin that just makes everything drag on and not really serve any purpose.
That kind of goes back to the promise concept. There's only 7 of them. You promise once they found 7, it'll be done.
Yes, exactly.
You explode into 7,000, it's like, okay, I'm out.
Yeah.
There can be only one.
Yes.
To go back to because I think pacing is a really it is an interesting thing in terms of within a film.
Yeah.
Because you write the film 3 times. You write the film when you're writing it, you write the film when you're shooting it, you write the film when you're cutting it.
I always thought it was drunk, sober, drunk again.
You're assuming that I was sober at any point.
No, write drunk, edit sober. That's
so the interesting thing is when I was writing the film, there was the monsters in particular. We used a different avatar every time we got into the film. So the protagonist of the first film is a side character in the second film. The protagonist of the second film is a side character in the third. So I keep introducing a new protagonist who then has to have explained to them what's going on so that then blah blah blah. So I introduced a protagonist in the third film. I brought characters back to life who had died in the second film. And the line I'm proudest of is one of the characters who's brought back to life says, "But I died, and maybe nobody knows why I came back." And that's all the explanation I ever give. And you can see this film tonight at 6, and you don't have to have seen the other film. So come see Ninjas vs. Monsters. But the thing that I ran into, especially when I was cutting the film together, because I had a 2-hour cut of the film, and it's an independent horror action film. It needs to be 90 minutes because it needs to be. Because it's you can't sustain for 2 hours. And in terms of pacing, I found myself going with this concept in my head. Everybody in the audience needs to pee. Everybody wants to everyone wants to go get a refill on their drink. I need to keep them in their seats. I need to make it so they never feel comfortable getting out of their seats to go, because the minute that I've done that, what I've done is I've made the film uninteresting enough that they don't want to see what's going to happen next. And I found myself as I was cutting it together, and I did find moments for interesting scenes, but like when I brought the tension down, that's when I would raise the emotional stakes a little bit, so that when the tension's down, you still are very interested in the interaction.
Well, that's the other thing. That dip is also used usually for extra character development. Because we were talking about, you need that development in the first act, but you also need it in that dip. We need to find out how much the character has grown since Act 1.
But I found myself taking out exposition. In those, anywhere where I had exposition, like where we're talking exposition, I would take it out. And I made it so, and I wrote this on purpose, that most of the exposition was given during arguments. So instead of having, like in the first film, I'd have people, especially in the second film, which is a fun film, but it's a little dour. People like, yes, it's really hard to be a ninja, it's so sad, and this is what's happening, and these are the rules, and all that. And the third one, it's like, you don't understand! This is what's happening, and this is what's going on! And so that's
I love that. That's my favorite new Sam the Explainer now.
So that way, the tension is still going while I'm also giving the exposition.
That's a great idea.
The biggest exposition scene in the whole film is like 9 minutes long for the exposition scene, and it's information that has to be given. So for almost no reason, in the middle of that scene, I have 2 characters in a life and death martial arts battle, happening in the background of everyone sitting around talking just like this. And then I cut to like this woman with these giant axes.
I've done that too. I had to give a whole page of talking heads, and in the background I had 2 cosplayers. One is the Doctor, one is Tom Baker, and one is David Tennant. And then they got into like a lightsaber battle with this in the background because I had nothing interesting to put in that page, but I had to make it visually interesting. So that's what I stuck in the background. But I have to say my favorite exposition of all time is in The Great Muppet Caper. When you have Lady Holiday standing up there and goes, I'm going out to lunch with my brother. He's a reckless person and I don't like him. He spends all my money and he's not to be trusted. And then Miss Piggy goes, why are you telling me all of this? And she goes, it's plot exposition. It has to go somewhere. Because you could do that ultimately. You could just hang a lampshade on the whole thing. Which I love breaking the fourth wall. That's one of my favorite ones where you have that moment of Deadpool or Pinkie Pie or whatever self-awareness where they just suddenly it's like we're in a comic. Sorry, we have to explain some things to the people who didn't get the last issue kind of thing. So I appreciate those now and then if you don't overuse those. Anybody else? We got about 10 more minutes.
Now, how would you take something like this and do it for like a short form? So say like a 10-minute movie as opposed to a 90-minute movie.
This guy's a short form guy.
Dude.
No, you know?
You do all that quicker.
I mean, that's really like.
Well, that's when you get more into like elements of comedy. It's like introduce the premise, introduce a conflict to the premise, twist it around, end on a joke or a button. And that can be either a visual gag or it can be on like a pun or a verbal gag or something like that. Yeah, I can't really explain it much more than that. My brother is much more of an improv guy than me, but.
Maybe why don't you talk about it in the context of a beat?
Yeah, a button or a beat at the end of it. I can't think of any examples right now. I can't. Well, like I said, the plot exposition. That was the one I was talking about. This is when a person is going. For example, she was just talking on about this is. I'm laying out the premise here. I'm talking about this, and then you have Piggy suddenly draw attention to the fact of why are you giving me this personal information? We only just met. I just walked into the scene 2 minutes ago, complete and total stranger. You're giving me, intimate details about your relationship with your brother. And then she turns it around with that last beat. It's plot exposition. It has to go somewhere. And that hits it on the level of suddenly she is aware that she is acting in a movie. It's also pointing out the fact that she's boring the audience and making light of that. So that was a good beat. So comedy kind of works that way. You start off with, like I said, you start off par normal. And the other one is you can have it with different characters. Like you can have your straight man and your fall guy, where you have the serious guy and the guy who's always messing about or always messes up. And that goes way. That's more than I can explain in 10 minutes. I'm sad. But if you want to come to my table or come to Pete's table, we got little funny comic strips and we can point out. Take a look at this page. And this is why it's funny. So
but
it's like I don't know.
It's also a question about doing it in video, like 10 minutes of
video. If
you want to go to film school for short form, amazing short form storytelling, pay for it, not download. Purchase the Pixar short films because they're all 10 minutes long. Some are really funny. Some are incredibly emotional.
Yeah.
Some are action oriented, and they tell their stories within 10 minutes. The stories themselves are interesting. They've made me cry in 10 minutes. They've made me cry. The stories have clear beginnings. Sometimes there's no dialogue in them.
Yeah, Jerry's Game is one of my favorite ones of those.
And it's that is a perfect example of short form video storytelling. I would recommend.
Which one would you recommend for this one? For the funny one.
For the funny one.
One man band, I guess. That was a good one.
I like One Man Band. There's I'm thinking very specifically about the I don't even know if it's Pixar or just straight Disney. There was one about a little dog. About a dog with a master, and the master finds a love interest, and then they break up, and the dog helps them get back. But it's all told from the point of view of the dog who loves the master and playing with the master, and somebody else comes and he loves both of them, and the dog falls in love with both the master and the girlfriend, and the girlfriend, you see them fighting in the background while the dogs start cowering, and then the girlfriend leaves, and the dog won't get out of its bed, and the dog won't eat, and the dog like finally runs out of the house, finds the girlfriend at work, starts tugging at her, the master's running to catch the dog, and then they run into each other, and you see this moment where they stop, and then there's a fade to they're back together again at the end.
I've never seen that one.
Like I'm getting goosebumps talking about it.
It's not really comedy though. I think if we're talking about comedy, like
For the birds.
yeah, the birds one. Yeah, that one.
Bird, yeah.
Bird. We set up with our characters. We have the little squeaky bath toy birds on the telephone line, just doing their bird thing, and suddenly, big giant big bird just plops down like this, and he's just sitting there going wah wah the whole time, and the other birds just one and there. They decide we've introduced conflict between big bird and little birds. Little birds then go on to their next step. They decide we're going to do something about Big O here. And then the next are the following attempts to get rid of Big Bird that fail, hilariously. And you got to do that by having a setup and then have it twisted. Has to go the opposite of how that's when we get into Wile E. Coyote physics or that sort of thing. Anything that they set up what they want to do and it fails spectacular. And that's just the thing, always go big. Like, a guy pulling out, if you're going for comedy, a guy pulling out a gun, not funny. A guy pulling out a slightly larger cartoonish gun, very funny. A guy putting on a hat. And that's supposed to destroy you or something like that. It's just like, they're like I will destroy you, and then they put on a hat. Suddenly, see we're getting some snickers over here, because it's not what you expect. It's going over the top. Guy putting a duck on his head. Okay, that's better. More laughs.
And the duck pulls out a cartoon gun.
And the gun puts on a hat.
It's always yes and. It's the best part is when writing. I can't write comedy unless I have another person with me, because that way we always try to top each other and we have things to bounce.
And the gun has a flag with a bang on it, which then in turn does something else.
Yes.
Which actually kills
and then
the
the
other
flag
guy.
pulls out
It's
a
a
gun.
flag, the flag puts a hat on.
Yeah.
Like if you want to do the violent beat, it's the
Yeah.
guy pulls out the gun, the other guy's all scared, the bang comes out, and the guy's like ha ha ha, and then the bang shoots out and shoots the guy in the chest, and the guy
I think
dies.
Joker did that one.
that,
Joker
yeah.
did that. Yeah. We called you.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
We got like 8 minutes left.
yeah, 5 technically.
What if you're writing 4 arcs? And so do you have a big climax in just like 3 and 4?
Are the 4 arcs 1, 2, 3, 4, or are there 4 arcs that intertwined into one story?
Well, it's one story, but it has 4 arcs.
Oh, you mean like you have your major plot and then you have minor arcs within them?
Yeah.
Was one of the arcs major, or are they all like competing for front seat at the same time?
No, not really. It's just the 3rd and 4th. It's like more like competing for who has the best climax.
Right.
So help me understand. Are we talking like episode 1 has an arc, episode 2 has an arc, episode 3 has an arc, episode 4 has an arc? Or are we talking about one story where all the arcs are happening at the same time?
The first one.
Okay, so in that case, but basically you have one of these, but then you have, this is going to be your overall arc for everything, and within that you're going to have your little arcs as well. It's pretty much going to be the same thing, and it's going to follow this pattern almost exactly. So each one is going to be a self-contained arc within the overall arc, and the same rules apply. You just gotta make sure that the first one is going to be your Act 1, or if you're splitting it up into 4 or something like that. Your Act 4 could be your Act 3 could be this dip. That could be the third issue would be the dip, the downtime. In anime it's the hot springs episode, right? No, everybody knows that's the trope. That's the whole getting to know you character development. We're not fighting crime today. Development. We're taking a road trip. We're taking a beach holiday. We're sitting home and discussing the Thanksgiving episode of Cheers, that sort of thing. But
The big difference is though, at the end, instead of having the denouement here at the end, you go up at the end, and instead of having I think cliffhangers are lazy. So I've listened to a podcast where they've redefined the end that goes up. Cliffhangers are bad. Game changers are good. So at the end of the episode, it's like a cliffhanger, but it changes everything that you thought, and it switches. A bad example, a bad cliffhangers, that's Alias, where a whole show happens, and in the last 5 minutes, they create a false tension at the end, because that's what you're tense about at the end. A game changer is when you get to the end of an episode, and it leaves you But the is because everything you just watch, everything changes at that moment, which then pulls your story.
That's true, but
forward.
remember, you've got to keep topping yourself if you're going to keep doing it. You have to always take it to the next level, and that gets hard if you don't plan ahead. You can't pants those. Or it shows very quickly, and then it turns into loss.
Just watch Daredevil, it will teach you everything you need to know.
Just what?
Daredevil.
Oh, the show.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Not the Ben Affleck, no, the show.
Well, I suppose it's a good what not to do.
And the interesting thing about the show is
Soundtrack, I like the soundtrack.
if you watch, and I listened to somebody that just pointed this out, that if you watch normal television, they have to create false tension before every commercial break.
Right.
Yeah.
So they have to go, there has to be, right before the commercial break. And the interesting thing about Daredevil, the first time that this has been done in terms of a fantasy show, really, outside of Game of Thrones does it too, so I guess outside of a comic book context, is that you never have to have that false tension. So you can slow burn through the whole episode, and the episodes can be more cinematic because you never have to break, not like on Arrow, which is a really good show, but you have to break. There has to be something that brings you through the commercial.
Yeah,
But you're talking about the Daredevil series that was on Netflix,
Yes.
right?
yeah.
It was released all at one time, so
Yes.
that goes back to you have the hook at the end because you want them to come back next week. There is no next week at Netflix. So it's not there out of some sense of writing it better, it's there because they don't need to pull you back next week, because they gave it to you the entire season was all one big package. You watch at your leisure.
That's kind of why I like the new cartoon format, where instead of doing 2 shorts or half an hour episode, you have your 7-minute episode
Yeah.
that is self-contained. It has all you need, and if you're watching it on a streaming format, the pacing is kind of it's a little more bouncy.
Yeah.
It's not as hard on you as it
Yeah.
would be if they were half-hour episodes for the whole thing. And the 2-parters are usually better paced too.
I like Gravity Falls. I'm saying that.
Yes.
very-
Oh God, yes. Love this so much. Can't believe they came back from hiatus with that. I was just
Yeah.
insanely happy.
Mm.
Spoilers.
Mhm.
All right. Anybody else? I think we're about.
One more?
Yeah. I think we got
Anyone?
1 or 2 more questions.
This is that tension that they mentioned.
Oh yeah.
We're just all gonna skip one.
Do we all,
Okay, well,
do we all die now or just pick one?
Well, I'm not weeding, so I'm not going to kill you all. I'm going to make you wear ducks on your heads.
Stephen Moffat, George R. R. Martin, and Joss Whedon walked into a bar. And everyone you know and love dies.
So why don't we just list what panels we're going to be doing later this week if anybody wants to do so.
Sure. I'm here today, and I will be. I forget the other panel. I'm off the top of my head, but then Ninjas vs. Monsters is tonight at 6.
All right.
Come see it in the video room. You'll see what I was talking about, and it's really fun, even if you don't know that. And then at 10 p.m. tonight, that's when you want to come to see a special, because that's Trek Off, which is my R/NC-17 rated Star Trek comedy podcast, which is crazy. Don't bring the kids. And come by, you can buy Ninjas vs. Monsters at our table in there too if you want to come in.
Cool. I will be doing.
15?
Okay, I will be doing a panel today at 4 p.m. on how to tailor men's shirts for if you have a curvy figure, or if you're a girl, or both, or what. Yes, me and Pete have one tomorrow on building strong characters. And what else are you doing today? You got one at
Just hanging out.
7 tonight?
No. No, it's the enablers.
Oh, yeah, the neighbors.
Yes.
Okay, so, all right, everybody have a nice.
Thank you, guys.
I am also in the artist alley. You can come by my table.
Yeah, me too.